Hi, welcome back to the kitchen, in the kitchen with Trevor. We're doing a very popular Pinterest recipe today. Everybody's been making little variations of it, but it's basically roasted tomato with feta cheese, a little fresh basil. We are gonna do it with spaghetti squash, or you can have regular spaghetti. It's your choice, so we'll do both. And then all you need is a little olive oil, a little salt and pepper, and some Italian seasoning. So we're gonna put this together. Oh, and of course, roasted garlic. So today we chose to go with the low keto, low carb alternative, which is the spaghetti squash. You'll find this in the grocery store if you've never picked one up before. It's a really hearty vegetable. It's very thick, but once you've cut it open, you want to be careful using your knife to cut it open. And then we're gonna scrape out the seeds, much like you would a pumpkin and Halloween, and that's exactly what the meat of the vegetable is going to resemble once it's cooked, once it's roasted, and you can scoop out of the skin, the outer skin of the vegetable, what will appear to be spaghetti, hence the name spaghetti squash. So we'll use that as our pasta in one dish, and we'll use traditional pasta in another. You're gonna want to get your grape tomatoes, the small ones, and as they bake and melt with the feta cheese, they are gonna break apart and become really, really soft. You're basically making your own marinara. So I highly recommend always using your own fresh ingredients versus something canned. So don't take the shortcuts. This is a real simple recipe, a handful of ingredients, about half an hour to 40 minutes in the oven. We'll preheat that to 350. Again, fresh basil rather than the dried will have a much different and much superior flavor profile, in my opinion. I also like the pink Himalayan salt versus the iodized, and fresh garlic. So we're gonna roast this with the rest of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a little more prep. We'll come back in just a second once I've got some of this started up, and I'll show you how we're gonna build it, and then we'll pop it in the oven. All right, be right back. Okay, so we've got our water boiling for the spaghetti. We've got our oven preheating, 350, 400, somewhere in there. We've got our spaghetti squash split up. What I've done is I just took the stem off to make it easier to slice through longwise. You can do it any different way, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna rub this with olive oil all over the inside. Then we're gonna put it face down and bake it so that when it's ready, it'll be all softened up, and then when you flip it back over, you can just scoop the meat of the vegetable out with a spoon. It's pretty simple. It will be hot, but we'll let it cool down a little bit before we get to that. So all you really need to do, take a little olive oil. I like to put my thumb over the top there. Just drizzle a little on the inside. And the prep work is the messiest part, so we'll just fill the little boats up. I guess they look like boats. With a little bit of olive oil. Okay. And you want to make sure that you get a pretty copious amount of olive oil in there, because that is going to soak in to the vegetable itself. So all I'm doing right now is rubbing it all over the edge of the vegetable and inside the void that we've created by scooping out the seeds, and that comes out again easy with just a simple spoon. So as I'm rubbing these in, I do have a safety tip I thought of for you that we can give for the members of the community that may be watching this video. I know this has hit YouTube now, so if you're watching this at home, if you haven't tried this before, this is our health tips for members of the fire department. These guys are usually a pretty steak and potatoes crowd, so I have taken it upon myself to just give them a couple of ideas. Pretty simple recipes that they can do on their own at home for their families that might be just a little bit better nutrition choice for longevity. And the safety tip I thought of is, since most house fires are caused in the kitchen, they begin in the kitchen. So that is your danger zone. So most people would have an extinguisher in the house somewhere near the kitchen. But I would recommend that you could keep the extinguisher near an exit. And this is the reason, because if you have a fire in the kitchen and then you can't access the extinguisher to put out the fire, then it does you no good. If it's near an exit and for some reason the fire gets out of control and the extinguisher is going to be ineffective, at least you have the extinguisher between you, the fire, and the exit is at your back versus the other way around. So at least you've gone to the exit to get the extinguisher and work your way back to the kitchen. And that way, if you decide you're not gonna be able to handle it with whatever home extinguisher you have, you can back out to the exit, and that way you'll be out and safe and you can give us a call. All right, so I've got the olive oil in place. We're gonna take a little bit of salt, and I like to make sure that I know how much salt I'm using. So I might do it in my hand first, and then get it on. This is coming out nicely. It's not too much. The Himalayan salt can be a little more robust. It'll have a different flavor than the iodized. I prefer it much better. It's a much smoother salt taste. So if you see some, go try it and invest in it, and you'll see what I'm talking about, how the flavor is a little bit different. So we get a little bit of salt on there, fresh cracked pepper. Pretty simple, just a taste. You can add more later. We're also gonna put some salt and pepper and stuff on the tomatoes when we add those. So we get this prepped up. I'm making 3 tonight because I think the whole crew, I made this once before and they actually were surprised that they enjoyed it as much as they did. So now I have to cook for more participants tonight. So a little bit of salt and pepper. All right, so then, like I said, we're gonna take it face down. So I've got my baking pan here. I put a little bit of olive oil on the tin foil so it won't stick. Just put them face down like that. Roll them around, make sure we move that olive oil around so we're not sticking later on. I think I can get all of these in here. It's okay if they're pretty close to one another because they are simply just going to roast. All right, so we got those. It's a little tight, but I think we'll make it. Okay, so face down, they'll go in the oven. You can put these in a little bit early. This might take a little bit longer because you want the meat of the vegetable to be soft. It might come out a little bit hard, or firm, I should say, versus the way a traditional pasta would be, the texture wise. So you want to go ahead and soften it up pretty good. All right, the next step, real simple, get a baking dish, okay? We are going to take our feta cheese. Now, I couldn't find the block. For some reason, everybody's out of that square. You can get a solid square feta. That would be preferred because this step, you'll just want to, for aesthetic reasons, we're going to put it right in the middle of the pan. Ba-boom, just like that. Okay, so I've got my feta in there. Then I'm going to take a handful of these tomatoes. We're going to go around the feta with the tomatoes. Since I'm making a double dish or a double serving, we're going to do 2 separate ones because we're going to mix one with traditional spaghetti and the other one will get the spaghetti squash. So I think that looks good. Okay, again, salt and pepper. We're also going to do some olive oil, and there was one other ingredient that you can do that I forgot that it had gotten misplaced, but a little balsamic vinegar goes really well on this also. And then my favorite part is a whole bulb of garlic. All you need to do, you don't have to take the skin off or anything, just want to take your knife and cut the tip off, not the part with the roots coming out, the other end, and you'll cut off about the top 1/10 there so that you're exposing all of the garlic pieces inside. And here's why, because we're gonna put that right in here with the tomatoes, and I'm gonna drizzle the olive oil right on top of the open end of the garlic now, and let that olive oil get down into the garlic bulb, and we'll drizzle our olive oil, make sure we're not getting too much, throughout the entire pan. That olive oil is going to help those tomatoes. Basically, you're making a marinara sauce with cheese. And feta, if you're not familiar with it, is a little salty. So you want to keep that in mind when you're adding your salt, not to overdo it. Go a little bit light out of the gate. I am going to put a little bit more in there because we do have a pretty good size pan. All right, salt, pepper. I don't have a whole lot of peppercorns in here. and some Italian seasoning. Just like so. And that's it. We're gonna save the basil for later after everything is roasted and ready to go. So that's all you have to do. Feta, tomatoes, garlic. Put it in there with the spaghetti squash, or you can do it and then do your traditional spaghetti on the stovetop after the fact. It takes about half an hour, and you'll want to check it. When these tomatoes start to, they're gonna burst and start to release the juices and everything, and when they become really easy to mash with a fork, they're done. All right, so we'll pop this in. I'm gonna dress the other one. We'll show you what it looks like when we get ready to take it out. So we'll be right back. Okay, right before we put it in, I just wanted to show you we did end up finding our block versus our crumbled feta. Okay, I added a little bit extra to this one, and we also found the balsamic. So a little spritz of the balsamic right in on top of the tomatoes and on the cheese. You can even put it on the garlic. It's all good. You're not gonna mess it up. Okay, just be mindful of how much of the seasoning you do, and that's to taste. Some people like more, some people like less. We're gonna put this in here for about a half an hour. Like I said, we'll watch it. And it will go right in here, and hopefully if we timed it just right, it's going to be the same amount of time as your spaghetti squash, which is already in there. I'm going to raise that level a little bit more. I can hear the water is boiling. Don't forget your timers. If you need to set a timer to remind yourself that you do have stuff in the oven. Here we go. Here's my hot. It's safety first, right? So here we go with that. I'm going to just adjust this a little bit. As you can see, these things looking pretty good there. This will go in with that. I think we'll have enough room for both, and we'll come back and check on these things in about 30 minutes. All right, we are back. We have taken out our spaghetti squash. I've got one of our collections of tomatoes and feta here. I'll show you how we prep that. The other one is still, I'm gonna let it roast for a little bit longer, because as you can see, what happens is these tomatoes, they begin to wrinkle and soften. And I'll bring this over here so you can take a good look at that. Okay, they begin to wrinkle and soften. We've got our cheese baked. Okay, so then what we're gonna do is you just take a fork, you can get in here and you start mashing the tomatoes up, and it will make pretty much start to make its own marinara. So just mash that up. Be careful when these explode, because the juice inside the tomato is going to be hot as lava. So just simply mash it up. We stir it in with the cheese. We get this mashed up, and then with the garlic, I'm gonna pull this out of here and let this cool off for just a minute. Basically, you can just squeeze the bulb, and all of that roasted garlic is gonna come out of that area where you had sliced off the top, and it'll pop right out. As far as the spaghetti squash goes, okay, now that it's roasted, you should be able to pull it off really easily with a fork. It's gonna flake, and you can see how it makes those little bits of spaghetti. That is also gonna go right in the mix here. So the flesh comes out nice and easy. You just transfer it over. Everything will be hot, so you want to be sure to be careful. Use your hot pads. I've got a little garlic butter that I have made up, because the guys really like to have garlic bread with their Italian themed meals. So that's all you got to do, and we will continue to mix this together. I'm going to mash these tomatoes and incorporate all of these different flavors. Then once we get the sauce, this is basically your marinara sauce, fresh made. We will incorporate all the ingredients together. Then we're gonna take a little bit of fresh basil, and all you really need to do with the basil is just tear little bits of the leaves off, so you get a whole leaf like that, and just tear it into tiny little pieces, put it on top, mix it up, and you'll be ready to go. So I'm gonna do a little more prep work here. As far as the garlic is concerned, now it might be a little bit warm, but you should be able to just squeeze it from the back end. Whoop, there goes one. And they come right out, nice and easy. That olive oil and the baking process has softened them up a pretty good bit. You do want to be a little bit careful not to get the skin in there. Some of that skin will want to jump out too, but you should be able to get it out, but not too much problem. You get a fork there and just pull out that excess skin, kind of like the skin of an onion will come right off. Okay, we'll separate all that. The garlic will be nice and soft, and you can mash that as well as the tomatoes and get all of those things incorporated. Once we've got all that complete, our dish is done. So let me work on this. You don't have to sit and watch me do all that, but that's how you do it. Just a fork, mash everything up. It'll be nice and soft. Be careful because it will be hot, and when those tomatoes begin to rupture, they can spit tomato juice out at you. So you don't want to get caught with that. It'll be really hot. So let me get this mixed up. We'll show you what the final product looks like back in just a minute. And we're back. All right, so we've incorporated all of the ingredients. On this side, we have the spaghetti squash. We've torn up the fresh basil, and you'll mix that in just before plating it. And then over here, we have, we chose angel hair pasta. Same mix. This one's a little bit heavier on the cheese because of that block is, I believe, 8 ounces, whereas the crumbled is usually 4. So we probably got about 6 ounces of feta on this one and 8 full ounces on this serving over here. So you can mess with the varying ingredients and how much you're going to use per your taste. We've also added some grilled chicken. Some of the fellas are going to go ahead and add chicken to that. You're perfectly okay to do that. Grilled salmon is also an excellent choice, or anything that you would normally have with an Italian meal. So even sausage or whatever. But we were trying to go with a meatless diet. So give this a try, spaghetti squash. Try it out, see how you like it. I would make sure that you roast it thoroughly to get that nice, softer consistency, because this stuff will still be kind of tough, not tough, but it will have the texture it will still be firm, extra firm, and you want to soften it up as much as you can. So go ahead and make sure you thoroughly roast that. Thanks again for joining us, Trevor in the kitchen from the Performance Wellness Team, New York County Fire and Rescue. Stay safe, be healthy. We'll see you next time.